So some economists specialize in certain sectors, but over time you get an opportunity to work and discuss different sectors of the economy. So let's maybe share about our most interesting sectors that we've come across.
Yeah,
Do you want to go?
I can go.
Yeah.
Yeah. My most interesting, I've only just started really looking into the property sector. So I cover this with my colleague. He's the more forefront one. My colleague, Samantha Mpanazi. We cover the property market, which we think this view really gives you an idea of what we're talking about here. And I just like how dynamic it is. You know, there's always different trends depending on the cycle of the economy. So, for example, when the interest rates were at an ultra low, then we saw first-time buyers coming into the market. I think that was so exciting, right? With ultra low interest rates, and we saw them also participating in different areas of the South African property market. So obviously, we know there's a lot of interest in Cape Town. But we're now actually starting to see something different as we're coming into 2025. It seems as though, Johannesburg, Gauteng is getting quite a bit of interest. It is a value perspective because, it's more affordable here. But we cannot speak about the opportunities and the nice things without the challenges, right? We know Johannesburg has a lot of challenges around water. Oh my goodness, service delivery can be so discouraging. And I guess this is something that will weigh on the property sector because yes, maybe your bond is not so expensive, especially with the interest rates cutting cycle that are having come through. But you could be really struggling from an inflation and utility cost point of view. The administered costs, you buy a car, the potholes that we have to contend with. So these are some of the issues that we think are so interesting at the sector level. It's always the grassroots issues, the bread and butter issues that get to these sectors.
But have you also looked at the construction side, not just the purchasing, but new developments coming up, whether it's residential or non-residential?
Yeah.
How is it? Is it just as dynamic as what you've discussed?
Yeah, so it's seemingly there is quite a bit of interest in sectional titles. So cluster housing and so forth. So that's getting quite a bit of interest. But if you look at stats, it says, approved number of approved, buildings that are still yet to be built or planning to be built. What you're seeing there is that there hasn't been quite a strong increase in construction activity. It might be a strong feature of a weak economy. We know in a weak economy, the construction sector tends to suffer first or suffer the most. And so maybe that's what's driving it. But what's happening now, because the supply is not really rising at the rate of the demand, there is a strengthening in pricing. And I think that's also supporting some of these provinces. And when you look at the regional dynamics, that's also something that is appealing.
But the process would also be a function of relatively lower interest rates?
The thing about interest rates, and it gets to me every time when we speak about them, especially given where we come from, where I come from, where you are, and I always have to discuss this when I'm in the media, is interest rates are still restrictive, guys. They've come down, but they're still restrictive.
Okay, so the relative compared to
they help, right? They help. The fact that we've had a cutting cycle does help. But I think we could go a lot more further, and I like how the trajectory now is speaking to even lower interest rates in the forecast period. So looking into 2027, 2028, we could see people actually being able to afford more because you have lower inflation, lower interest rates, and that's something that's positive. I think. You guys must be so chuffed about that.
No comments.
No.
No, but I want to go back to something that you said about building planes plus. Whether it's the number or the value, do you honestly think it's still a relevant indicator for activity in the building industry?
I think, statistics are always going to get probed, right? Especially in the time that we're in. I think we're hungry for alternative data, so that is definitely something that is there. But when we do alternative data, such as our confidence indicators, so as FNB we run a building confidence indicator. We also have a civil confidence indicator that gives you some sort of an indication of what's happening in the pipeline. And you can see there's something happening in the pipeline, but what people businesses tend to complain about is the bread and butter issues. We go back to that. Service delivery, whether government tenders are really coming through, whether the structural reform is really supported here. So there seems to be activity, seems to be there, profitability seems to be improving, but those grassroots issues are unfortunately still holding back the momentum that we could see.
All of this you're saying based on sentiment indicators.
I'm mixing the data, okay? Because
Sentiment indicators tend to be quite volatile compared to real sector indicators.
Yeah. But we haven't seen the volatility in those sector indicators.
So are they reliable at the moment? Because things do change.
Yeah, and I think also when you look at the GDP data, you will get a sense of whether what you see in sentiment and these alternative data sources actually comes through on the GDP front. And what you see what you see for that sector, construction sector, is probably one of the major laggards when it comes to recovery in economic activity. So whether we want to, look at alternative data and sort of have a feel, what it all speaks to is the sector has not been robust, and it won't be robust without that stronger economic momentum. So I think that's what we're doing.
Just one last quick one from me.
How does it become my interview?
It's not good. I'm just asking. There is an interesting thing, not interesting, heartbreaking thing about construction mafias.
Yeah.
Well, they don't call them construction mafias. They call themselves business forums in some cases. And they have, been reported to disrupt activity quite a lot in the buildings and in the construction sector, civil construction. Is it still the case? Because there were reports previously that there were even some skilled professional in the property sector who opted to leave the country and go do business elsewhere because they couldn't control the amount of violence that they were confronted with. Is this still the case?
Yeah, I think if anything, what we are seeing of late, whether it's the Mazanga Commission, anything, it's just really speaking to the fact that we have a serious crime problem in this country. Right? Whether it's the construction mafia or the water tankers, it's just issues that just feed into each other and create this really unsettling environment when you think about it from a business operations point of view. And I think the brain drain goes as far as even the workers. Right? I think that's the fear that we should have in South Africa. It's not only those businesses, those developers that are going to leave. You might also see workers leaving. So what does that mean for the quality of buildings that we will have in future? And as I said, if you're getting a good cutting cycle, if incomes are growing faster than inflation, and first-time buyers are participating in the market, those are the buyers that are vulnerable to this brain drain. So I think that's something that we really need to worry about from a crime perspective.
So I guess that shows that the kind of improvement that we need for economy to really move forward, and it's not only about demand factors, but it's also about law and order. And that's the interesting thing about our profession, is that you can't just look at one thing. In mathematics, 1 + 1 is 1, but for us,
1 + 1 is 1.
1 + 1 is 2, but in economics, it just depends all the time. Bringing to my favorite sector, I think it would be 2 actually. The electricity sector as well as the mining sector.
Both plagued by crime as well.
It's heartbreaking actually, because the kind of crime that miners are complaining about, the mining houses, goes beyond the forums that we spoke about or the mafias. Because they're there. They started in the construction sector, but they moved into the mining sector as well. But now, the kind of crime in the sector, in the mining sector that mining houses are complaining about, has to do with crimes at strategic levels. We might not see the crime, but we see the aftermath of it. We see it in the weak infrastructure that we have. We have a lot of mining companies saying that they could be producing even double what they're producing now if only they had a railway. And then you ask, why don't we have a functioning railway? Because there was no maintenance. Why was there no maintenance? Then we don't want to get into that space. But I think the biggest challenge in the mining sector in South Africa has to do with infrastructure. There is not enough infrastructure, especially railway, so it slows down production. Then electricity also contributes to that, because with the mining industry, it's not like a household when electricity goes off, when it comes back, you just switch on and continue with life. Some of the equipment in the mining sector, we need to switch them on hours before they can start being operational. And they are not meant to switch on and off. So if that happens, then it can mess up the whole production. There has been an agreement with our provider of electricity in the country, in a lot of mining areas, that there won't be any road shedding or cutting of electricity. But even if there's that agreement, if there is an issue of, let's say, the transmission networks that are supposed to take electricity, if they're not maintained and they fail, then that sector is still going to be without electricity. So mining sector is among the most beautiful and unique things that we have in our country. But the challenges there are really heartbreaking, because it holds the whole economy back.
But in terms of growth going forward, do you see mining as a growth sector? I mean, it's a growth story for our history, right? But going forward,
it has potential. There is a lot of potential. It will just depend on what the powers that be decide. If you solve that's the basic thing. If you solve the issue of rail and port systems in our country, you will see a bit of growth coming. If you solve the issue of electricity, you will still see a lot of it, because there is demand for mining products, right? Yes, you find that let's say our gold mining sector, we have among the deepest mine in the whole world, so it becomes quite costly for miners to go all the way down and still extract the value. But if they did not have to deal with a lot of other infrastructure challenges, we would still be able to get something out of them. And technology is improving every day. So for us to write off the mining sector, in my opinion, it would be big mistakes. Because not only are we looking at traditional safe haven minerals like gold and platinum and stuff, but all these other minerals that are needed for the green economy that is growing rapidly. We stand a chance.
Last question before I let you go.
You let me go.
Electricity. You said electricity is also very fascinating, and we've seen quite a lot of improvement there. I mean, wow, 2023 was a trough. We're seeing improvements there. Are you excited about the future of electricity generation?
I think I would have to give the same answer. There is potential. We've got everything that we need. The problem is that, do we have the people to make the right decisions to get us there? The electricity sector is the heartbeat of the whole economy. Not only does it directly affect the mining sector, but it directly affects the manufacturing sector and the whole of the services sector, of which we are an economy moving towards that. So if we get the electricity side sorted, I don't think there's anything that can really stand in the way, but there is potential. There is still hope. I'm not going to give up.
Definitely, we can never ever give up. And I guess this is just these are just three sectors that we've covered today. We'll be happy to cover way more sectors as we go along. Until then, come on, let's just look at this. Hi guys, just wanted to give a few disclaimers because obviously we do work with certain restrictions. Even as we do these videos, we just want to let you know that all of our views, everything that we have said, is not the opinions of our employers or any institution. And I also wanted to mention that as economists, we are not mandated to provide financial advice. So please do not consider this financial advice. We are just merely sharing some insights and our personal experiences with you.
So everything that we share here is our personal opinion. It does not represent any institution. It does not constitute financial advice.
Thank you. And even any forecasts, right? Don't hold us to it. We're economists. We have two hands. There's one and the other. And even if we get it wrong, we'll just have an explanation for it.
We've explained economics is a social science. We study human beings. So we cannot have fixed rules, but we definitely have substantial backing for whatever forecast that we put in or discussion that we share.